Sheila Cox here with Mary Alessi in sunny Miami, Florida. Here to talk about her new CD project and everything else going on. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, Sheila, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to have you guys down here our way.
Actually, there's so much to talk to you about. Just like I had mentioned, you're a singer, songwriter, producer, mother, wife. So we'll just start out talking about your new CD, Pressing On. It just came out a few months ago, actually, and it's very exciting to me. I've been listening to it over and over because of the worship, and actually it's several different genres. So I find it very interesting. So tell me about that.
Well, this is the first project that I've done here in Miami at our home church, which is where we are right now. And I really wanted to branch out, especially since I self-produced and I wasn't working with a producer. And I kind of wanted to see what am I capable of doing and what is on the inside of me. And it's not just one sound. There's a lot. When you live in a city like Miami, it's so eclectic. There's such a mix. So much is embraced here. And I didn't want to just be put in one particular genre of music. And I wanted a project that would kind of say who I am, not only musically but lyrically, and also bring the corporate, the pastoral side into what I'm doing on the road, because every song that we put on the project had to go through the screening of the congregation first, because we've been singing them here for about a year, and the congregation really started to love the songs and ask for the songs, and I said, all right, those are the ones that are going to go on the project. But the truth of the matter is, all those songs were birthed out of a time that we had come through with my husband having a heart attack. And that was a real difficult time in our life. But through that experience, these songs were birthed.
I know you had mentioned that pressing on, the actual words, is like the theme of our lives, that it's not just the song. Tell us about that.
Well, in regards to what my husband and I went through, we had started our vacation 3 years ago, the day after Father's Day. And on that first day of the vacation, he went into a massive heart attack, and it was a widowmaker. It was the worst kind. Only 5% survived. It was so difficult. It threw us really off our A game. And I said it the other day. I said it's like getting knocked off a horse and your horse keeps running and you're stranded. And emotionally, we did feel stranded, both of us. And I really learned about God that it's okay to question Him. You can't necessarily stay angry, but it's okay to be a little wondering, Lord, what happened? And through that experience, through that season of just saying, I don't care if I ever write another song, if I ever record another project. All I care about is my husband, my family, and what matters the most is life and health. And through that time, I just was crying out to God for answers. Why would you let this happen? I mean, it was a severe heart attack. His heart was damaged. But the answers to those questions started to come in the form of songs. And that's how it does for me. It comes in my worship time. And the song Pressing On, I co-wrote with my sister Martha Munizzi. And it really became the theme of the entire project, because when you do get knocked off your horse, when life hits you hard, you may not know where you're going tomorrow. Emotionally, I couldn't really paint a picture of feeling good when I was feeling bad, but I just knew I couldn't stay there. I had to get it together, grieve for as long as I needed to grieve, deal with whatever it was I needed to deal with, and now I've got to press on. I've got to push past where I'm at, and I have to live my life that way. Because my life isn't ordinary, it's extraordinary. God's called me to do greater things. And even with this limp, even with this setback, we're going to even live out our lives fuller and greater to the greatest potential that we can. And so that's the theme of that song. I'm pressing on because I don't want to live an ordinary life. Everything that I do is for the cause of Christ, so I'm pressing on.
Amazing that He actually came through that, and you guys are doing great and have your church. And some of the words that you mentioned in the song is not looking from the left to the right, and that's actually something that we had looked at in Joshua. I'm sure that's probably where you got it from, Joshua 1:7, where God was leading Joshua to the promised land and keeping him from looking to the left and the right, and just holding on to the promises of God and keeping His law. And so tell me, how do you see that relevant to us? Tell me how you were able to keep from the distractions of your call and to your call to worship the Lord.
Well, before I'm an artist, before I'm a songwriter, before I'm anything else, I'm a Christian, and I love God. And the most important thing to me is my relationship with Him. Not writing another song, not recording another album, not all the things on my to-do list. The most important thing to me is that God knows that I love Him unconditionally because I know that He loves me unconditionally. One of the things that was very excruciating that I had never anticipated, I had never been through a trauma like that. Nobody in my family had ever been through any kind of trauma with 45 minutes of paramedics working on him trying to help him survive because he was dying in front of us.
And the paramedics just happened to be there, right?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing that the paramedic of the year for the state of Florida happened to be stationed at the station house that we were at that year, because we weren't here. We were at another city, and that particular place where they were stationed, station house, was on the same property of where our condo was. So when I called, I heard the sirens. I'm like, how could this be? I'm still on the phone. How do I hear the sirens? They were there within a minute and a half. Had he had the heart attack here, he wouldn't have survived because the response time in these big cities is so hard. They don't make it within 4 minutes. Well, they need to be there within 3. They came in. 7 times they hit him with the defibrillator. They usually don't do more than 3 or 4 because it becomes very damaging to the entire body and other organs. But they were determined to save his life that day. I was on the phone with my sister, my mom, every prayer warrior I knew. We had hundreds on the phone within minutes, and just trusting God that God would turn it all around. But you know, you asked me that question, and I have to say that I really had to come face to face with that scripture verse, choose life or choose death. Because every time I would walk away from his side to just get out of the paramedic's way, this voice would say, don't leave him, he's going to die. Stay, let him be the last face you see. And then I would hear the Holy Spirit say, but why does he have to die? But then I'd walk away and I'd say, because if I'm not next to him, what if he does that? What if he passes and I'm not right there? And I just heard the Holy Spirit say, okay, Mary, choose. Even unto death, choose. What are you going to choose? And I said, until he takes his last breath, I'm choosing life. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to stand over him and worry and think. I'm not going to think the worst until the worst happens. I'm going to think the best. And even if the worst happens, God's going to take care of that. And he's going to take care of me. And I went there all the way. I had to, or I would have lost my mind. And even after the heart attack, even after we went through it, the doctor, he told us, he said, you're going to go through a season where you're going to feel like Steve died. You're going to experience that. And so that's what Pressing On is about. It's really my life, my anthem, what God's called me to, wrapped up in 13 songs, So I'm very excited, and all the songs on the project are like my babies. I love them all.
They're also, I know you had mentioned that they're also very easy. You wrote them easy for congregations to pick up. And also on one of them, in the live recording, the audience started singing before you got to the chorus. Maybe tell us about that.
Well, I Will Bless the Lord was a song that just sprang in my spirit. It was almost like a download about a year ago. And I came to church and I said, I'm just going to try this tonight. I'm just going to see. And I quickly showed it to our music department and our music player, our keyboard player, and I said, let's just follow me on this. And within minutes, it was as if they already knew the song. And I knew we had something. When the congregation can grab it quickly, you always have a great song. Because it's got to be about the corporate worship. It's not about how great we are as singers. It really is, are we all singing? Not just the ones with the microphones, but are the people of God singing? So I really wanted to write a song that would take the pressure off of us as these great 3-part harmonies and singing and bands and all that, and put it in the hands of the people and say, here's something simple that you can sing and worship the Lord with. Now let's sing. And it just became a song that if they just heard the intro, that the crowd would start singing. And that really, listen, my mission, and I feel like my full calling, is to help this congregation break free and worship God with all their heart and with all their soul. And I want to do this for the rest of my life with these folks. God's going to keep bringing more, but I know that what happens here, it's just an overflow of what happens on the road. But this is really where my heart is. So every song that I write, everything that I do, goes through them. And I know if they like it, the rest of the country and the rest of the world will like it.
And I've heard that you have a real passion for worship. Obviously, you're a worship leader, and that is your passion. But also, you have a gift for bringing people to the throne room. So what you do here translates over into your CD.
Yeah, it has to. It has to, because that's who I am. And, you know, I went back and forth between, do I do studio, do I do a live? But the reality is, I stayed with a live performance because that's where I feel like that's my comfort zone. That's the place God's called me to. And so I wanted to go there. I wanted to have that, you know, intimate experience with the Lord, and I want the listeners to have that as well.
Now tell me, getting back to your church, this obviously is where your heart is. You started it probably 13 years ago with your husband. I'm curious to know how that got started, because you started in a hotel room?
We did. We had co-pastored, and we're associate pastors with his mom and dad for years, way further south, and the Lord just led us, and they encouraged us to go out and start our own work. So we started in a hotel room here in the Doral area, and we had, I think, 3 or 4 couples with us at the time who are still with us today. Some are working on staff with us, and we just kind of just plugged along. And let me tell you, Miami's a tough city to grow a church. It's a very hard city, but when you know you're called somewhere, the grace is there for it. And there were some frustrating moments. There still are. It's growth. It's growing. Growing always hurts. You know, you'll get to a place where it feels good because the pants fit, but don't get used to it, because you're going to get more pain and you're going to get more uncomfortable, and it's time for a new set of pants. And that's I love that. I love that. I don't want to stay in a complacent place in my life. I love the challenges of growing and the pain and the frustration, and then realizing, wait a minute. Okay, let's evaluate where we are. All right, we're frustrated. We feel stuck. We're up against a wall. All right, it's time for breakthrough. It's time to pray our way through. God hadn't left us. He hasn't forsaken us. This is just part of the process. And I love that. I love those moments where you realize, all right, God, I see how you do it. I see how you work. We're not stalemated. We are just at a level that we need to break down. It's another barrier. And when you're in ministry, it's for life. It's long term. And people have asked me, how do you do it? Don't you get exhausted? You know, you've got kids, you know, projects, writing songs. Ministry does not burn you out. I don't believe that. I don't believe that ministry and burnout go hand in hand. I don't believe that pastoring and burnout go hand in hand. I think that when we get our priorities out of place, we burn out. But the Word says that my yoke's easy and my burden is light. So ministry can't be heavy. It's ministry. It's ministry to the people. It's ministry to God. That's the easy part. When we get frustrated and we get overwhelmed, and this is where my priorities have to stay in place. My kids come first, my husband comes first, my relationship with the Lord comes first. Everything else is just work. But ministry to God's people is never exhausting. It's never tiring. Doesn't mean that I'm not drained every once in a while, but it's never to the breaking point. So that's why I can write more songs and I can do more projects, because wherever He graces me for my place. And grace is power, and it's mercy that's overextended to us, and it's favor. And that's how we just continue to do, that's how I continue to do what I know He's called me to do.
So basically what you're saying is, or the encouragement to us is to be in our place and to not overextend ourselves to the point where we're stepping outside of our call. And I consider that very encouraging. And I would like to encourage everyone who's watching to actually go out and get pressing on, because it really ministers to everybody. There's different genres. There's rock, pop, gospel, worship, contemporary Christian. And just go out and get pressing on, because it will definitely minister to you. And I thank you very much for interviewing with us. It's definitely been a pleasure, and I just wish you the best in all that you do. And just hearing your heart and listening to your works, I know that God's going to do a lot with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you.
Sheila Cox signing off for Cross Culture Media.